All right,
All
we
right.
are up live. Well, for any viewers looking at this, obviously you've seen my videos in the past. This is a little different today. We're just being able to explore different guests, but still having the same approach, still looking to better ourselves, whether it be in business, fitness, mindset, whatever it may be. We still have the same approach, but obviously a different tactic, obviously. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce today's guest. Today's guest is someone that is not only a friend, but someone who I respect for going after what he wants. He is a computer science student at NC State. He is specializing in artificial intelligence, and that led to him being a co-founder of his own business. Along with this, his project spans across everything from automation workflows to AI power systems. He's helped businesses streamline operations, cut costs, and handle thousands of interactions at scale. On top of that, he's worked as a growth fellow at Willow, a software engineer in a venture studio environment, and contributed to the AI initiatives tied to Wharton. So it's pretty safe to say that he's positioned himself at a unique crossroads of engineering, growth, and real world applications. And so in this episode, we're going to break down how he's thinking about AI in business today, his background as an engineer, and how he approaches networking in today's world. So without further ado, John, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thank you, man. It's a pleasure being on here. I'm more than happy to be on here and talk about these things. When you introduce me like that, definitely it sounds a little better than it is. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, some of those things aren't as in depth as they seem. I promise. But yeah, I'm more than happy to be here. Like you said, I'm a computer science student at NC State. With the intention of specializing in artificial intelligence, assuming I make it all 4 years without finding something better. And then, yeah, I'm currently about to intern over in San Francisco from a trip that I recently took. I'm sure we'll talk about that in the near future. But yeah, I'm incoming technical growth associate at AfterQuery. Started my own business last year, Advanced Generation AI, with a buddy of mine. We no longer do that venture. I do it sometimes alone, doing small work. But yeah, I started basically doing NNN and Zapier work last year when I was studying for a computer science exam, and I realized I probably didn't want to sit at a desk and code all for the rest of my life. So I picked it up. I started learning about it, and I started building workflows for content for restaurants or just small groups, small businesses, and I was able to automate their workflows and responses for emails, texts, just apps they wanted to build, and I think little things like that, to where I was able to pick up a little bit, get a little bit of money out of it, and gain a really good set of skills that were able to set me up into this new wave of agentic AI that we currently have, where I'm trying to shift a lot of my projects toward and a lot of my current work toward. So yeah, it's been a journey over the last year, and yeah, more than happy to be here.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, I know for me, I didn't just pick you because you were a friend, but someone I actually wanted to understand their mindset and their approach to things. When I do have conversations with people, it's not for the sake of just having conversations. I don't like shallow conversations. I don't like, short end conversations. I want
Yeah.
to be able to learn from that person, be able to take something away from having that conversation, hence why we're here today. So to kind of jump off things, I do want to kind of get an idea of, obviously connecting, being able to connect with people, talk to them, interact with people. And so I want
Yeah.
to know your approach when it comes to networking. Obviously,
Yeah.
you've been at San Francisco, you started networking with different engineers, you use LinkedIn heavily. Talk to me about, what your approach is to
Yeah. So I
how
think
you're going
that's
about
a
that.
really interesting topic. A lot of people ask me about this all the time. As time's gone on over the last 5 or 6 months, people text me probably every day asking me to connect them with somebody, or, get them a job or something, or how do I do this, right? And there really is no magic pill of how do you do it. I think kind of branching off of that, like talking with someone to get something out of the conversation. I feel like I was like that for a long time, and I wasn't very outgoing in a way where I wouldn't really talk to you unless I felt like I could get something out of it.
Yeah.
Now that's not to say that I'm going to talk with anybody, because I feel like there are some conversations that you can pretty much tell ahead of time are going to be pretty redundant. But I think the key to networking when you don't know anybody off the start is to be open to it, right? Don't be so transactional. People can tell right off the bat when you're coming in to be transactional, right? If you come in asking, just questions that only give you something, right, and don't open up the other person's mind at all, I think that really turns somebody off of the conversation sometimes. So I think just going into that, where I started like my overall networking journey was LinkedIn last December. So just to preface that, when we talked about my business and what I had last year, got into a pretty shaky deal with a client, and I was
Yeah.
stupid. I didn't insure myself. I didn't get a lawyer to look at my contract. We ended up
Yeah.
going to a pretty large contract, and it ended up going belly up, where I ended up losing a lot of money due to a poor business decision on my part, which I'll never do again. But yeah, lost about a good amount of money at the time for me, and I abandoned that venture for then. And I was, hey, I want to look at something else. And startups are really interesting to me. Startups are really big on LinkedIn. They're really big on X. Really big on media in general, right? Because those people need to broadcast their product. They need the distribution. They don't have the big name like an Apple, a Google, a Meta. So they go on there and they get kids to promote their product, right? So I would go on there and I would literally just shoot DMs out, right? Just to anybody that had YC in their bio, anybody who had a FANG company in their bio, just shoot them a DM and say, hey, what did you do? Can I talk to you? Can I ask you questions? Or can I get to pick your brain? Stuff like that. And when you first start out and you start sending messages like that, it is a little cliche, and some people will definitely turn you away. So then I guess as time went on, I ended up doing more of like these coffee chats, right? I would kind of pivot my strategy into I think something that worked really well is I would kind of go to somebody's profile. I would look at something they had done or something that they were good at. I would find a question about something under their profile, right? Something that let them know that, hey, I did my research on you. I know who you are, enough of what you've seen. I've done, looking past the original page of your profile to just say, oh, this guy's YC. And then I have a real, question of substance that I can use to open his mind about his business. Maybe it might not even be a question, maybe something that I'm suggesting, or, or a question. And then I would kind of segue that into, hey, do you have 15 minutes of your time I can take the talk, right? And that ended up working really well.
For the people you do reach out to, because obviously a lot of people, when they start networking, start reaching out to people, it is kind of basic. It's very general. And so what, obviously you don't have to give away your exact strategy or wording, but how do you typically phrase interact with somebody? Because obviously you're a stranger, you're just reaching out cold. Most people, when they do it, they're just like, hey, I want to talk about A, B, and C, but they get ghosted.
So I think it depends on the area that the person's in, right? You can usually tell by a person's profile or their content what type of person somebody is. If you find them to be like a pretty, outgoing and laid back person, I'll structure it a little more, colloquial. It'll be something that's very laid back. Like, hey, how are you? I'm getting into startups. I saw you doing this. I think you might want to do this. Let's chat about it. Maybe not that, cut and dry, but don't make it too long, right? No matter what. But then there's other people who are fairly professional, and I'll be like, hey, I'm getting into the startup space as a student in XYZ. I saw that you did this as well. I have a question about specifically this and how you did it. Would you be able to answer me here, or can we hop on a 15-minute call? Because a lot of people who are very successful in their area who you'll try to talk to, they're gonna ask, why do I want to talk to you? I don't want to give 15 minutes to you. Why can't I just send you a message back, right? So you need to give them a reason to go into more detail on a call, right? Because I think that's another part of networking that a lot of people miss is like, I think there's levels to it, right? You can DM someone or message someone and they can give you a message back. But chances are, if you need to warm intro that person to somebody, or if you need that person in the future, if you just want to talk to that person in the future, it's a lot harder to get a hold of them because they never felt a connection to you. They never saw your face. They never heard your tone. They never got to hear more based like other than your first initial question on LinkedIn, right? It's hard to kind of segue that conversation sometimes. So I think the next level would be like a Zoom call. And I think that those things are important. It's hard to meet with everybody in person, right? Obviously, if I'm in the US in North Carolina and somebody's in Australia, which I've done, right? I mean, you can't really just hop on a flight. So I think that's also really important. There's people that I still talk to all the time that I only met over Zoom call, right? But I think that's another level of it. It adds another, and like I said, it adds a tone, it adds feeling, it adds person to person interaction. And then I think if you can escalate that to in person is where you truly are able to form more of those, long lasting relationships.
Because I
I've met
know,
people that I met off LinkedIn who I've flown to California with. So I mean,
yeah.
I think it's a big level.
Yeah, I know for me, definitely meeting in person, like it's a
Yeah,
lot easier for me to connect to people. I can
yeah,
shake hands, I can meet face to face. It's easier for me. When it comes to online, for some reason, I don't really understand the communication aspect. I don't understand the right words to say, if there is a right
yeah,
word. And things get misconstrued or it doesn't come across as appropriately as it should. And
yeah,
I don't get to get the connection that I was looking for originally based on my lack of experience
yeah,
within outreach online. And so that's for me, it's one of the things I'm trying to better understand, get better at, just because I know it's so important for networking. You can only
yeah,
shake so many hands in a day. You can only meet so many people in a day. And to be able to extend that onto online, now you have access to thousands or millions of people if you know
yeah.
how to do it correctly. And so for what you're doing on LinkedIn, where do you see this going? How do you see it benefiting you towards what you're trying to do later
Yeah.
on?
So before I even answer that question, going back to what you just said right there, is like, I don't know what to say, I guess, is what a lot of people will tell me. And there really isn't a template. Templates allow for efficiency, right? But they also almost imply automation.
Yeah.
And I think when you're doing outreach and you're trying to do it personally, like I want to talk to you personally and have a conversation with you. It's a lot different than when you're trying to do outreach for your business, when you might try to automate some things and get like more volume. But I think when you're doing it personally, you need to cater it to that individual, right? There's no like one specific template that's going to be your winner. It has to be a very person to person thing. The second somebody senses that you're a bot or that something's automated or using a template, plugging their name in, they're not going to answer you, or they are going to answer you and you're not going to like what they say.
Yeah.
So I think that's
And
one thing that I definitely want to add there. But then moving into like, where do I see this going, or how has it helped me and how will it help me? Um, Before we do that, besides like networking on LinkedIn, I think posting content is huge. A lot of very successful people that I know, or a lot of friends of mine that I know who are doing very well right now at a very young age, have broadcasted things, and it's hard for people to start that. It seems weird. People will be like, "Why are you doing this?" Right? Like, why are you posting on LinkedIn? Why are you posting on X? It's a little more normalized on Instagram and TikTok to try and start a brand, right?
yeah.
But on like LinkedIn and X, it's a little bit weird to people, right? So these are kind of professionalized platforms. They feel like they're too young to be on there. A lot of people on there are CEOs, CFOs, C-suite executives, and people like that. So it's like, why am I on here? But I think what a lot of people don't understand, and I had this conversation earlier with some of my houses, like when you send your resume in, that person can only see what you put on the paper that day. And whatever you put on the paper that day can only be verified to a certain degree, right? And someone's only going to want to take a certain amount of time to verify that to a certain degree, right? But if you can form essentially a resume of yourself day after day through building in public and actually showing stuff that you've pushed, showing products that you've done, you now show this resume of consistency and product over time, day after day, instead of just what you put on a piece of paper. And that means so much, because you have to think about how an employer is going to look at you, or how an investor is going to look at you, right? If they just see what you have on the paper, they can say, "Oh, he got here in a day through one vibe coding session," or they can say, "Look at the amount of work he's been putting in, this hard work he's been putting in day after day after day, and the amount of community he's been able to put behind him," right? Because community is not only just followers, right? It's distribution, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing as well. Is the more community you have behind you, not just followers, they're very different. The amount of community you can have behind you, people that will truly listen to what you say, is also your distribution in the long run, right? Because you need people to trust you. That's why, like, when I tell my friend he's trying to start a fitness brand, and I'm like, well, like, why are you trying to start a fitness brand with 10 people behind you? Let's build your brand, build your community. Because once you have, don't spend money on product when you have no distribution.
Mm.
It's like trying to put a piece of the puzzle together without a piece. It's not gonna work. You need to understand how this flows before you just get into it. So I think that's kind of how I look at it now. Is I'm able to build this brand to open up an opportunity for me in California. Now I think the important part for me is, okay, let me leverage this opportunity and build in public with it, kind of using these brands that I've acquired on my profile to
Mhm.
create this community behind me, of people who are interested in this stuff behind me. And then over time, as I build this following and build these people that trust me, I then have distribution for a product of my own in the future. And I think a lot of people on LinkedIn or on X are, wannabe founders, wannabe startup founders. And I am myself eventually. I mean, if I have an idea that I have the conviction to start, hopefully someday.
Yeah,
And I think it's important to think of that in the long term, because you could have the best idea, but if nobody knows about it, it's not going anywhere. And I think that
absolutely.
is so important. There are so many genius level individuals that even I know myself personally, that because nobody knows who they are, can't get a job. Then the kid who has 10,000 followers on LinkedIn and everybody's seen him build for the last 300 days, and one Tesla employer saw his work, he got the job. So it's leverage, right? And it doesn't
Yeah.
take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of time.
So for people that you have met, whether it be online or in person, going to California, what's one of the biggest takeaways that you took from them in order to get to where you want to go?
I think the biggest takeaway from people who I've met when I was out there and people I've met online is agency, right? This is a word a lot of people throw around, kind of now in
Elaborate.
this startup era is agency. A person having agency means, they take it upon themselves. It's agency is almost synonymous with initiative to a degree.
Okay.
It's somebody is able to do it themselves, get themselves off the ground. Let me approach that person. Let me build this myself. I'm not waiting for someone to tell me what to do. I think that's huge. And so many people see value in that. Like a lot of people like working at YC companies or fan companies. When I was on work trial for Afterquery, it wasn't like, this is how you do this. This is how you do this. How well can you follow instructions? No, they don't want to see that. They want to see, here's your end goal. Let me see how you get there. And I think that is so important. You need to be able to go from A to B without the specific set of Lego instructions that tell you how to get from A to B, right? So you need to be able to critically think. And that, requires some level of agency. You need to go out there and learn things yourself. Everything you learn in school is not going to be what you do in the workplace every single day. And I think sometimes that's a misconception, but I think as a society, we've kind of moved away from that misconception in all honesty. But you need to do more than what you're learning in school. I mean,
I
there are
was,
tools that move so quick every single
yeah.
day from all these different AI companies that you need to be learning day after day.
So I was just going to ask in terms of school, because obviously you have your background in software engineer, but in terms of real world application, have you seen equivalency of what you learned in school through what you're
Yeah.
getting from
No,
people?
I think I would be stupid to say that there's no correlation. I mean, even if you're not, say, using like the direct code or direct things that you're using from school, over the ability to problem solve a lot of different projects that you're given and debug, work in groups. So there are definitely skills that come from learning these courses in school, because they do teach it at really deep levels. Because you're in a course for a whole semester, right? And a lot of these online courses for the same topics may take you a couple weeks. So they do go pretty deep in the topic. So I would be lying to you, and I think anybody who's lying to you said they learned nothing in school. But I think that you can truly expedite your learning if you have some level of agency outside of school. So I think that's an important distinction to make as well.
What about when it comes to the networking, but also teamwork side of things? I'm not
Yeah.
sure if in school you guys did like team projects or stuff like that. And if you did, based on your experience in doing team projects at school versus the real world team projects, how do they kind of correlate? How do they fit into each other,
They
or
they
do
do
they
they
not at
do help
all?
each other. They do help each other for sure. Especially when you're talking about, programming or software engineering. You do work in groups a lot at school. They try to, make sure you're doing like pair programming, stuff like that. Because you need people to do your code review regardless, and you do that in the real world too. But so I say it definitely carries over. It's a little bit different when you're outside of school.
Yeah,
When you're doing like a startup environment, I'd say, because it's not like you have a rubric, right? So it's a little bit different. It's more of a
correct.
brainstorm with somebody and whose idea do we take, rather than we're just doing this implementation and we have to make sure we do it right. We have to get to right here, and this is how exactly we have to do it. I wouldn't say like necessarily the teamwork and collaboration aspect of it is different, rather than how exactly it's being done.
Mm.
And obviously, I think finding a co-founder or finding teammates is a little bit different outside of school. And when you're in school, you're usually working with a classmate, or you're given a classmate to work with. I think finding someone that you can work with well is extremely important outside of school, whether it be your own startup or in any type of environment.
So for people who are listening to you and probably going to be curious about this, what is your end goal? Like, what are you trying to achieve? You went to school, you studied, you got you got the information. What's the end goal? What are you trying to approach with this?
Yeah, so my end goal is to be a startup founder for sure. I would like to have my own business down the line rather than just the agency I created last year. Now, for me, I think that this is another important piece we talk about because a lot of people on LinkedIn, you'll see they have founder in their bio, or they'll see that
Yeah.
they have exited in their bio. And the truth is that they have raised no money and they have not exited for any money. So I think that first of all, don't get overwhelmed by people who say that, but some of that's the sad truth of a lot of those profiles, and they are founders, right? I mean, they've created something, but they haven't had something that they're so passionate about. They just wanted to say they were founders. They hopped on Claude Code for a couple of weeks and they made something and they pushed it out on their LinkedIn. So I don't want to be that kind of founder. I wouldn't pursue my startup until I felt a true conviction behind something to where I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
I think it takes that to truly make it out there. I mean, I've met a lot of startup founders who are successful, who have raised money fast, and it's all they do. It's all they think about. It's all they do. You know, day in, day out. You know, if you go to talk to them, they're thinking about it. They're posting about it. Their
Have
whole
you
life revolves around it.
have you had ideas that kind of sparked an interest, but it never went too far? You're just like, oh, this was
Yeah,
fantastic at the time.
I
And
would
then looking back at it, it just didn't
I
pan
would
out.
say I've had a few where I like hopped on and like planned out a coding session, or even a few, or even a week or two, or a couple weeks, and I've gone through it and I've just been like, no, that's not what I want to spend my time on. But yeah, I haven't really hit that yet. So I think after a few of those kind of get up a little bit and fall, I
Yeah.
decided that my best way to go about it would be to join teams of say, hey, 1 to 50 people, teams who are either just after their seed round or about to raise Series A or just raised Series A, and kind of see how they operate, see how they work, get in the minds of these people who have done this, right? I want to see what it takes. What do the operations look like? What does the growth look like? What's the day-to-day look like? How long are these people staying in the office? What does it truly take to raise to that kind of money? And that's why I'm really happy that I was able to score this role at Afterquery, a company that just raised their Series A. They just raised over $30 million in their Series A at over a $300 million valuation. So I'm really in a good spot, right? They just raised their Series A a couple weeks ago. I'm able to now go in there in the summer and maybe even full time after that and see how these people operate, which was definitely my goal. And if I stay there for a few years and I grow with them, and then I branch off, or maybe I stay with them as one of the first 70 people and they get big. Who knows? So but I think
So
my
you're not
personal goal
necessarily there for sorry, you're not necessarily there for just like straight money part of thing, but also the project has to make sense for you as well. And then the money
yeah,
will come
no,
later on, sounds like.
it's definitely not just a money thing. I mean, obviously money's important, you need it, and I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but
Yeah.
it is important. And I think that if you find the right role, especially in this space, the money will be there. The money will be there. But you do need to truly like what you're doing. I mean, they could have paid me a lot less than what they are, and I would have still taken the job. So I think that it's very important to find something that you truly want to do, and that's something that can truly help you grow. Like I'm a server right now, right? And
Yeah.
I make pretty good money serving in fine dining, but at least for being 19. And um, I could stay there throughout college and work and get my degree and probably stack a good amount of cash, right? But there's no growth. The highest I'll go is a manager at the restaurant or in the hospitality group that they are. And, that's not what I want to do. So, and I tell people that work there all the time, like, why are you here? And they're like, I just need the money. I'm like, well, that's cool, but that's almost kind of stupid,
How
right?
far is that going to go?
It's like it comes to a certain point where you have to think about fulfillment in the long run. And when I did my interview at Afterquery with um, their COO, Danny Tang, he kind of made me think about this because when we were asking about why I did what I did and why I was working as hard as I was to get there, he kept asking me why, why. And it made me think about why they hire these people and who these people really are behind these companies. And they have a certain level of intrinsic like fulfillment they want to reach. It's not just I want money. they don't care about the money. They want to feel fulfilled in the end. I think we break away from that too much sometimes as people. We're only on the planet for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
You should live to be fulfilled, right? Don't just live for money. Don't just live for whatever other vice it is or anything like that you have. You want to be fulfilled at the end. You want to be able to sit down at the end of the day, whenever it is, and say, I did what I wanted to do with no regrets. So I think that's really important.
I think for me, the fulfillment thing it's been fluctuating, but I think one thing that stays consistent is wanting to help other people become the best versions of themselves, because everyone goes through trials and tribulations, everyone goes through their struggles. But I think one thing for me, whether it be from teaching martial arts or just be personal trainer or even just my own self-development, is that we're all writing a story. And in order to build the best version of your story, the best version of yourself, you're going to have to go through those trials and tribulations. You're going to have to start improving. You're going to have to start looking back and thinking about what you want to do in the future. What's going to be the best version of your story? How are you going to accomplish that? And with your accomplishments, what is that going to mean? If you accomplish $10 million versus I help 10 million people, that's a big difference in how your story is going to be told to other people. And so I know for me, being able to help other people, being able to teach other people, and all growing together is one of probably the biggest things in my life right now that's pushing me. And I know for other people, they may not have found their why. They may have not found what they're pushing for, and which leads me to my next question, actually, because with people not knowing what their why is, you personally, I know you told me about losing money in an older venture. Most people would stop there. Most people would say, shit, this isn't it for me. This is not for me. Entrepreneurship is not the route. Why did you push forward? Why did you decide,
throughout my life, I have a pattern. I'm very bad at finishing things. I get bored, if you will. I get to a certain point where I feel like I know I can achieve something, and then I just don't. It's terrible. It's the worst. I don't know why. I don't know. I felt like I had it pretty written for me to go to a very good school, and I just last year at high school said, no, I don't feel like doing that anymore. Or I was a life scout, if you know what that is, the one before Eagle, and I said, no, I don't want to do it anymore. I get to these points where, and there's been more of those instances, 2 examples. I get to these points where I feel like I'm good at something and I've dedicated so much time, but then I just stop. And I felt like I had to stop doing that. I felt like it was killing me inside, because I felt like I had nothing to show for anything, but I felt like I'd done so much work. So I felt like I was always financially motivated for one, and secondly, I always wanted to have something that was mine, and I didn't really want it to fail. But when that failed, and that went belly up, I really had this like stride behind me that I didn't want that to be the end this time. And I've worked very hard over the last year to make sure it wasn't. So that was my reason. It was really kind of personal, honestly. I felt like I had nothing to show for the last 2 or 3 years that I had been doing things. So I felt like it was time. And I still do that sometimes, honestly. I'll start projects and I just won't finish them. But I'm trying to get a lot better at that. And it has a lot to do with the structure of life, and how you do those kinds of things and how you organize your mind. But yeah, that was really my reason behind it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, trust me, I get it. Took me
I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that feeling.
Yeah. I know for me, consistency was the biggest issue for me. Probably similar to your approach. Like I obviously always had big goals, had big aspirations, and one of the biggest things is just consistently. And I think recently, I literally just told somebody this the other day, but when what I thought I was going to feel like at 25, it actually happened at 26. So very recently, there was a switch in my brain. I'm not sure if it was just the frontal lobe finally developing, but there was a switch of, I used to think, what would people think about me? How will this reflect on others? How would it approach others? And I just every time I start pushing, I just doubted that like immediately. And every time I I basically shot myself in the foot. And recently, you know, starting with AI, I'm just like, dude, you got to commit to something. Commit all the way, win or fail, go ahead. And I'm not a person who's afraid of risk. I think for me, I think it was a lot more judgment, even though I say I don't appreciate people, or I don't care for people's judgment. I think intrinsically I did.
You do. Everybody does.
And recently it was just a matter of, okay, dude, you're 26. He's like, either at this breaking point of either you're gonna make it work or you're gonna keep repeating what you kept doing. And I was like, well, I obviously can't keep doing what I kept doing. So something's got to change. And I think I stopped a lot of things, stopped a lot of bad habits, and I feel so much better afterwards. I feel like I'm doing a lot more in the past couple months than I've done in the past 5 years. And I've met so much more people because, again, networking has now been a bigger part of my life. I've started reaching out to people, started giving more of my energy, my time, being more selfless in that approach. Not really expecting anything back. I would hope something comes back, but in the idea of, I know I can't do this alone. Obviously, doing it alone has not been successful in the past. So if I can learn from other people's experience and bring them into my circle of influence, my life will be 1,000 times better. And I think that's one of the biggest things I'm taking away from, you know, even just meeting you. Like that was, I don't even understand how that came apart. I just remember LinkedIn, and then after that, we just kept meeting up, and the story began from there. But
pretty much. I think with that, when we go into like the judgment part of things, because a lot of my friends, I feel like, live very interesting lives, and they won't broadcast it because they're scared of judgment. I think a big part of this being scared of judgment comes from the constant comparison that we get from a lot of these social media apps. So I got rid of Instagram and TikTok probably last July because it's hard to try and start when you're watching someone already so far ahead. And I think it can be motivating because you're like, I want to be there, but at the same time, it creates a feeling of distance, right? It's like, I'm watching this guy on a screen who has such a good life, and I want to be there, but I'm just his viewer. It's like, I am not going to get anywhere. But when you actually get off of those platforms and you stop spending your time scrolling and watching these people, and you actually put yourself around them, you realize how attainable it is. And I think that, like, that adaptation level theory, if you will, like the ability to elevate, and then you adapt to a new level, and elevate and adapt to a new level, was really hindered by social media to a degree, not in a time aspect and in a mindset aspect. You know, once I got on LinkedIn and I posted every single day for almost, 90 days, and I would just post and I would go on there, interact, and then I would get off, so it's like, I'm not looking at anything else. I don't care who just got a job at Google. I don't care who just raised 50 million. I don't care. You have to distance yourself and focus on your own lane, and you'll realize that when you do that, how much further ahead you are than the people you were looking at before. It really is. It's insane when you look at it in hindsight. You're like, wow, I was working on myself for so long that I left everybody in the dust because I stopped looking behind me. When you're in a race and you keep looking back, somebody's going to catch you. If you keep your head down and just keep sprinting, you'll have a couple people that are doing the same thing right
way farther ahead,
right? There's a couple people that are doing the same thing right next to you, and those are the people in your group, right? But then you have the people that you left behind who just kept looking back and looking back and looking back. And I think the more times that you look back, if you will, the slower you are.
I think that's dead on, because for me, I think people on my page understand, like, once I hit a certain point, I'm very self-aware. Once I realize that social media is using me versus I'm using social media, I have to delete it. I have to cut it off immediately. And so I think over these past couple of years, I've done a lot of self-development, but I haven't done a lot of business development, because that hinders on the idea of, again, when I start something, I have to go back on social media. I got to market myself. I got to promote, but I'm not ready to be on there. Or at least I'm not mature enough to be on there without letting it abuse me yet. But I think, again, recently starting to not have my social media on my phone, but have it on my computer. So I know the only time I'm going on there is for business purposes. And that, again, has helped so much in the process and allowed me to just focus on staying consistent. And I've been consistent this entire time, and it's helped so much. But also the people around me, I think meeting more entrepreneurs like myself, it has made it 10 times easier to stay consistent and focused when you have people around you going through the same stories, or similar stories, going through the same struggles, and understanding that it's not just you. And
Yeah.
maybe you can relate to this, because I went to a dinner a couple of weeks ago with a couple of entrepreneurs, and we were just talking about the lifestyle, how people don't understand, but also one thing that I think gets touched on a lot, the loneliness, even if you're surrounded by people that they don't really understand or get to adapt, because they're not going through the same goal. They're not approaching the same thing.
Yeah.
And so it feels just like it's just you. It simply is just you. You're going through it and no one else around you understands. Do you experience that? Is that something that you go
I think
through?
I did for a while last year. I think when I was trying to start my agency, I think there was a lot of that. I was like, man, I keep fucking up. Like, how's this happening? But I think once I started to truly network, like mass network as much as I did, like the loneliness while building kind of faded. I mean, obviously sometimes like when you're moving around alone, I mean, it still feels that way. It's like, oh, I'm the only one doing this. But I think the more you interact with people like day to day, like actually interact, not like comment section or something like that, but shoot you a text, somebody phone call or stuff like that, the more human you feel, the more alive, the less lonely. I think that's really big. The other thing that I think a lot of people experience coming up as like an entrepreneur or even somebody in the workforce who doesn't come from a lot of money, and by a lot, I'm seeing like people who didn't come up like rich. I mean, there's a lot of middle class people I'm sure feel this way as well. Is like that unattainable kind of feeling. It's like I'm supposed to get to this level. Like I'm supposed to join the workforce, and I'm supposed to get to this level and have this kind of family when I'm older. I think it's so important to surround yourself with other people, like-minded people, because that goes away quick. You realize that whatever level of money you thought you couldn't get, you can get. You realize whatever car you couldn't get, you can get. You need to be around people, almost like kind of cliche saying, but make yourself the dumbest person in the room, right? I mean, it helps so much because you elevate so quick,
1000%.
so quick. Force yourself to learn.
So for people who are going throughout this entrepreneurial lifestyle, obviously they're stepping into a world of, well, AI, and they're being able to automate some things. Maybe they not know about it. Maybe they're just hearing about it and haven't started it yet. What would you say to those people who are behind? You're like, I don't even want to touch it yet, or I haven't touched it yet. I don't know what it is yet. How would you explain
I
it to
talk to
people?
these people all the time, and I would say you're not behind.
That's you.
Uh, there's a good saying, right? It's best time to start was 10 years ago. Second best time is today, right? So
Love that quote.
uh, I think you gotta start. You're not behind. And I think the thing a lot of people realize that makes it hard is they're like, I'm behind. Well, you're gonna fall even more behind if you never start, right? The more time you wait to start, the more behind you fall. And I think this idea of behind is kind of created by this facade of AI taking over everything right now.
Yeah.
But if you really look at the numbers of how many people are truly adapting this technology right now in the workforce, you'd be surprised to find that it's like not even like 3% of the population. So when you say behind, yeah, you may be behind in the group of people who are 19 to 23 who are majoring in computer science and artificial intelligence at the top 50 schools in the country. Sure, if you niche down to those maybe 700,000 people,
Yeah.
then sure,
You're
you might be
behind.
behind, right? But if you look at a grand scheme of the 400 million people in the US, guess what? You're probably not behind. Now multiply that. We have 8 billion people in the world, and 7 billion don't even know what AI is. Like, couldn't
Fair.
describe it if I asked. So, like, they
So
may
how
have
would you
heard of them.
describe it?
Oh, man. Put me on the spot. I mean, like, I
If you're
think,
explaining to like a 7-year-old who just doesn't
yeah,
understand
that's what I'm trying to,
exactly what it is.
that's the description I'm trying to put together here. Is, I would say, I mean, there's different types of AI, right? But in a generality, it's it's a tool, right? It's a tool that uses, you know, the information of the past to attempt to aid your thinking for the future. I wouldn't say that it doesn't create thinking for the future, but it
Mm.
helps aid your thinking for the future and your innovation. because it has such a large access to things and a large ability to permute things together, to create things that your mind may be thinking of. So I think that is probably like the simplest way I would describe it to somebody.
So for people who are just starting out, what would you recommend that they start or dabble in just to at least understand it or get a better idea of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I think the first thing to do, like as somebody who like never has touched AI, I mean, I don't think you're going to go, training any models anytime soon. But I think the first thing is just to use the simple tools. Interact with ChatGPT, interact with Claude, interact with Gemini. These are the big ones, right? I mean, I don't think people are going to be out there using local models who have never touched this stuff before or dabbling with any agent harnesses. But I think you should just go.
You never know.
Yeah, right. Get straight into it. I think you should definitely just interact with the tools. That's big. Interact with the tools. See how they talk to you. See how you can talk to them. See what you can get out of them. You'd be surprised how many things in your life you can help. You can speed up with AI. But I think there is a risk. There's a risk in memory. There's a risk in cognitive function. There's a risk in critical thinking. Because
human, right?
Yes. Yeah. because yeah, it's easy to have it do things for you that you may be like, oh, I don't have to think about this anymore, but you should. Because even if it's an easy task, you may not see the benefit of it there. I think using it as a tool and not as that crutch that a lot of people talk about is so important, because you will use those critical thinking skills and they continue to compound regardless of how difficult the task is.
So for the people who are, let's say, that 3% who are currently using it, what are you seeing in the day-to-day business that people are using AI for?
Everything. There's really not one thing that you could say that they're probably not. I will say, like, they do use it for almost everything. I mean, I personally have a lot of things running. I have AI that checks my homework, every day. I have AI that codes for me. I have AI that reviews my code. I send browser agents out all the time. They go look for things. Generate, designer content now. It's but I say, like, the two things that I would say about people who use AI for everything is that one, like, positive thing is that they're always looking for new models. There's new frontier models coming out. There's new adaptations to these frontier models coming out. And then there's new things coming out with the old models as well that just keep updating and updating and updating and updating. So be on the lookout for all of those and new technology. The change is so fast, so you might have to change your stack, like, really quick to really adapt with the times. Like OpenAI's new image model that came out yesterday is unbelievable.
I haven't looked at OpenAI in a minute.
Oh,
I've been on Cloud a lot more.
I was on X the other day and I saw this, and I've been generating images with it, and I had probably about 3 hours of fun yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
And dude, I mean, it's insane. Anybody who hasn't tried it yet, I should. I use Nano Banana for like ever, but
I was gonna say, is it better than Gemini's approach?
Yeah, dude. I mean, the ability for this to not mess up words and get people's faces right is kind of unreal. But yeah, besides that little tangent there, I would say they're always adapting. But I think the one thing is that when you look at like distribution and advertising, and why so many of these startup companies and actual companies are hiring like growth people right now, is because you still need a human to human element in business. It's hard to have agent to agent talk to people right now, or agent to agent market things right now. I don't think we're quite there yet to where that trust is there. Like I said, only 3% of the people really know about this. When people feel like they're getting, taken advantage of, or like people leg up on them, they hate it, right? Anybody does. So I think human to human is still very important. Sometimes people make that mistake when they're a little too technical. They're like, I'm just going to automate this. So I see it on LinkedIn all the time. Like, there's a couple people, I'm not going to say profile names, but I see a couple people constantly who are commenting with AI. It's like, oh, this was so great because you did this. Oh my God. Like, that's not you, bro. You didn't say that.
That's a bot.
Nobody talks like that. You used one of the LinkedIn, backend APIs. Like, there's a couple out there that people have that aren't that expensive, like overseas, and you're using it to just, spam comments through, whatever nano model you decide to use. So, like, I don't know. It's kind of stupid at times. So I think you still need to be mindful of that. Like, no matter how much you use it, is that yeah, it can push out a lot of volume, but your ability to be genuine and have genuine conversation can be hindered sometimes when you overuse it.
I know for me, looking into businesses, one thing I'm starting to realize is that they're not necessarily like no business is automated, but aspects of the business are, for example, they may automate a particular part of their finance division, being able to
Yeah,
automate different processes within that one division versus, oh,
yeah,
we're just going to automate finance in general. No one's doing that. I don't think anyone trusts it that much.
yeah,
And I think it's definitely helped me tailor or taper my business into how I'm approaching people, because obviously every business is different. But at the end of the day, I think the baseline is they want to be able to use AI and not have AI run their business. They just want to
yeah,
use it as a tool. And I think that's one thing people are not understanding. I think
yeah,
there's a lot of gurus out there trying to sell the idea of, oh, every business is running their business. They're not. they're
yeah,
they're using it as a tool because they
yeah,
still need people to look after it, double check it, make sure it's
yeah,
actually good work before sending it out to their clients. Because the last thing you want is a computer talking to your clients that you spent
yeah,
10, 15, 20 years building reputation behind.
yeah,
No one's doing that. Not a single person. And
exactly.
so I think one of the biggest things I want to know, I think most people want to know is, where, as a person in the industry, where do you see it going in the future? Where do you see people using it?
Yeah.
How they use it? Where developers creating? Why they're creating it?
Um, I think that we're definitely moving into a direction where you have to adapt it or you will be left behind. I don't know if that's now at all. Like I said, not a lot of people use it day to day as we stand right now. But I will say that it is getting very advanced. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of Claude Mythos, and what that model is able to do and what they say it's able to do in Project was it Glasswing. So yeah, I think it's getting stronger. They're able to train these models really well right now, and they're able to kind of quantize them to make them smaller and smaller, so that they can be on everybody's devices. Um, so I think that that is where I see a lot of development happening right now, is trying to make these models work just as good but smaller.
Mhm.
Because obviously usage and being able to use these models costs money, and it costs power, costs compute. So being able to make them smaller with the same level of accuracy is a really important distinction in the field right now, that a lot of people are trying to solve, is how can we get this to run locally and train itself locally without running through thousands and thousands of dollars of compute. So that's where it's currently going. As far as like the strength of the models themselves and accuracy, it's getting really good. It is, especially in the fields of programming. It's very good. The benchmarks that it's passing are nearing the levels of the highest PhDs that we have. So I mean, it's
That's
it's getting it's getting good, but like you said, you still want human analysis right now because people don't trust it. So I do see it getting really good. Where does that lead us? I don't know. Like I don't know. Because um I know MIT did a study on this the other day. I didn't read the whole paper, but they had 12 possibilities on where we could end up. Um
mm,
Now I think for me, the one that I think about the most is like we end up becoming a little too reliant, and then we almost end up putting things in place that revert it.
like everything
Um
else.
Yeah, right. Because we're like, oh, this was so good, but then it's like it's actually killing us if we really
Yes.
think about it. So I don't know. We might get to a point of reversion where we're like, actually, we should go back to humans doing everything and just live as people instead of trying to actually get higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and everything to where we no longer even have to do anything, right? Because then
I
where's the fulfillment in that? Um, but I
I
don't
think they're
think
starting to
that's
see that in
anytime in the
school.
future.
I think I'm starting to see that with school and technology. I think I was listening to a podcast where a neuroscientist was saying, you know, our the newer generation, yeah, since human time, the next generation has always been smarter or more equipped than the last generation. And
Yeah,
for the first time in history, this generation is, I wouldn't say less smarter, but they're just not,
like, yeah,
they're not
their
able to
ability
do what
their
our other
ability to
generation were.
think is
So
difficult because
diminished.
there's a mindset of like, oh, I can have this do it for me. And you end up losing a lot of the detail that you get when you do it yourself. I mean, like I program a lot with like coding tools, but like as of late, like I've even been trying to hop on like Leak Code and just code for a little bit, just because like just trying to sharpen skills, right? You want to make sure you're still understanding what you're doing, because it's easy over time when it gets to be just like natural language describing, your code base and describing, a file and describing how you want things to work together. It's so easy to get caught up in natural language, I feel like. um Even with the best programmers. Now, I'm not saying I'm any good by any stretch of the imagination. I'm okay, but I'm not great. But it's easy to get caught up in that and kind of lose some of those skills you don't sharpen them. So I would say that's really big, or else I think we will see even more of that reversion, um, of people kind of going backwards, with the technology moving forward, which means that somebody's moving forward, right? But it's those
Absolutely.
developers who are truly honing those skills, and then everybody who's using these tools will, kind of.
I
So
love it.
yeah, it's kind of how I view it.
Love it. Awesome. Well, John, I appreciate you, man. And so I do want to jump into the closing section and just
Yeah,
kind of
no problem.
open the floor to you, allow you to ask me questions if you have any, or if you just want to skip right to the question before we head out, we can do that as well.
I mean, I got one question for you, because this is a little new for you. I know this
Shoot.
podcast thing is a little new. I mean, where do you see
Yeah.
this going? Why did you start this? Who's your next guest? Who's your next prospective guest?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my two questions for you. Why and who?
So for me, I was talking to someone I looked up to for marketing, because he has his own marketing company. He travels and is very successful in what he does. And we were talking about just different approaches to my marketing strategy. Right now, I told him I was putting out content twice a day on my platforms. And he was just throwing an idea. He was like, have you considered podcasting? He's like, in that one setting, not only can you get a long format video for YouTube, but you can also get the short clips for social or small short form platforms, which I obviously thought in the past. I've dabbled in it a little bit, but I think at that point I was in the fitness industry, so it was a little different. It was a little harder. It wasn't of substance to me at the time. And so right now, being in this industry, or at least doing the things that I'm doing with a different mindset, it made more sense. Because again, I want to be able to connect and network with people and have longer, deeper conversations, because that's what makes me happy right now, is being able to connect with people. And so in terms of why I'm doing it, that's why, to be able to better market, to be able to market better, and also be able to connect with people without being, being efficient. We work on business and pleasure at the same time. But where do I see it going? Obviously, because it is a new thing, it's not something that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have the top podcast in the world. It's not. If my reason is for marketing, it's not gonna be for the reason of I want to start a podcast business. It's not the case. It's just a great way for me to conversate with people and to be able to, allow other people to see me talking and other people's thought process around what I'm trying to build, which is a community of people who are just trying to better themselves, find the best version of themselves, again, through mindset, through business, through fitness, because all those things at some point they start to correlate and blend in, and your business becomes your life becomes your business, and everything around it helps it grow and help you grow as a person. So yeah, that's where we're going with this. That's the intention.
All right.
Just use it for what it is.
I like that. All right.
But yeah, man. But for you, John, my next guest is a project manager. She is a great friend of mine, and she works in the game industry. And so for her, I want to be able to understand her connection with people, because obviously as a project manager, you got to be able to connect. You got to be able to understand what your people is looking for. You got to be able to lead to a certain degree. And I want to see exactly, what her mindset is behind that. Because again, for me, people are new to me, meaning I can communicate with people, sure, but being able to communicate well with them and understand their emotions or understand their why and reason, to be able to support that from a leadership perspective is still new to me, at least in a proper way. And so I want to be able to adapt that skill, and to learn from someone like her would be amazing. And so,
very nice.
Yeah, she's my next guest. I'm excited for that call as well. And I got 5 other people lined up already, and hopefully I can extend that further. Actually six other people so far lined that
Very
up
nice.
further. And that's why I always want to end the show with, asking the next guest, or you asking next guest, whatever you want to ask them. If you had to leave, two questions. The next one's gonna be for the next guest, but for the listeners, if you were, knock on wood, if you're on your deathbed and you're passed away tomorrow, what is one last message you would want to either leave with people, or one last thing you think they should know about yourself or about the world or about your mindset or about anything in general that you would want to leave to people?
Yeah, I think the one thing that a lot of people need to know is like, just go for it, right? You just got to go for it. You got to take the jump. You got to do what it takes, and just get after it. Don't stay inside your comfort zone so much. It takes taking a leap to truly make a difference in whatever field you want, whether it's your personal life, your financial life, or the world in itself. You have to take a leap at some point. You're not going to get there by doing the same exact thing that you've been doing. So I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice I can add. And then along with that is, when you take that leap, you think that people will judge you, and they might at first, but like after that, I mean, they will join you because you will be making a difference. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice I can give anybody.
I love that, man. That's awesome. All right. Well, in that case, John, is there anything else that you're working on? Any projects people should be keeping up with? Any ventures you're moving after?
No,
What's the
I
last
mean,
thing you want to tell the audience?
I got a couple of projects I'm working on myself, but nothing that's far along enough that I'll share it here. I'm just trying to find housing in California. I think that's the biggest problem right now.
I think that's a mission in its own, dude. That's a whole journey in itself.
Tall task, bro.
Awesome. Well, again,
yeah,
man, I appreciate you. And
here, let me get a picture. I got a picture
for sure.
Hold up. All righty. Wait, it's not really centered. Shoot. You can end the recording if you want, but I'm just trying to get a picture.
You're good. Let people see your process.
All right, that one's better.
Good.
All right, bet, bro. I'll talk to you later.
I'll see you later, man. Appreciate you guys.